Welcome back, everyone. Moving on to more simplifying exponential expressions. So number one, we got 4 to the negative 2 to the power of 3 to the power of negative 1 over 3. So this, very similar to this, except there's a third exponent. So basically, we just have to multiply all of these whenever you see something like this. So negative 1 over 3 times 3 is negative 1, times negative 2 is 2. So this ends up being 4 to the power of 2. Which is 16. Number two, we got negative 4 over 5 to the power of negative 3. Now, whenever you see a fraction in this sort of format, there's a negative in front, you want to take that negative and either put it in the numerator or the denominator. Not both, but one of them. So usually I just take it and put it in the numerator. So we got negative 4 over 5, so negative 4 over positive 5 to the power of negative 3. And we are going to be using that law right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip the fraction. So we'll have 5 over negative 4. And that will be to the power of positive 3. Flip the fraction, exponent turns positive. Then we distribute the exponent to the numerator and to the denominator. And if there's a negative value, then we put that negative value in brackets. So 5 to the power of 3 is 125. And then negative 4 to the power of 3 is negative 64. And then this negative we could just put up top. So negative 125 over 64 is the answer for number 2. Number 3, we got negative 4 to the power of 4 to the power of negative 1. Now this one's actually pretty tricky. It looks pretty easy, but it's actually not. So if you remember, there's a difference between this and that. If you have a negative value like this in brackets to the power of an exponent, then you're just taking that value and simply multiplying it, right? So we're multiplying negative 4 times. And this ends up being positive 256. However, if you see something like this, where this negative is in front of the 4, but this is not in brackets, then you can actually rewrite this. There's like a negative 1 in front, and then this positive 4 is to the power of 4. Right? Do you see the difference between these two? Right? This 4 is to the power of 4. And with BEDMAS, we got to do exponents first, and then we would multiply. Versus here, this whole negative 4 is to the power of 4. So we would just multiply that expression in the brackets 4 times. But here, the whole negative 4 is not to the power of 4. It's only the 4 that's to the power of 4 there. Right? So there's like a negative 1 in front, and 4 is to the power of 4. So whenever you see something like this, you can just rewrite it like that. So for example, if you have like negative 3 to the power of 5, you can rewrite that as negative 1 times 3 to the power of 5. And you would do the exponents first, then multiply by negative 1. Or if you have negative 2 to the power of 6, that would be negative 1, 2 to the power of 6. Right? But if it's in brackets, then you just take negative 3 in brackets to the power of 5, multiply it 5 times. Right? But if there's no brackets, then you just take the 3 to the power of 5 and then multiply that value by negative 1. So just be careful with these. So 4 to the power of 4 is positive 256, but multiplied by negative 1, that actually ends up being negative 256. Actually, you don't even have to put it in brackets. All right, so this and this, they are both different. So this ends up being negative 256. So we could actually plug that result in here. So this ends up being in the bracket negative 256 to the power of negative 1. And then we would just use this law here. So this would end up being 1 over negative 256 to the power of positive 1. Right? Brought this down to the denominator, right? The negative exponent we brought down, and then it changed to a positive exponent. And then negative 256 to the power 1 is just negative 256. So this ends up being 1 over negative 256 or negative 1 over 256. Right? So just be careful with these types of questions where you see that expression, where that negative is not in brackets. And then over here, we have 5 to the negative 2 plus 2 to the negative 3. So this here, what we want to do is we want to first change both of these expressions. We can't do anything about the adding. We have to change these to fractions, and then we could add the fractions. So 5 to the negative 2, that ends up being 1 over 5 to the 2, plus 2 to the negative 3 is 1 over 2 to the power of 3. So we just use this law again. So this ends up being 1 over 25 plus 1 over 8. And then from here, you just get a common denominator. Common denominator between 25 and 8 would be what? 200? So 1 over, sorry, this is going to be over 200. This is going to be over 200. So 25 goes into 200 how many times? 8 times. So this ends up being 8 over 200. And 8 goes into 225 times. So this ends up being 25 over 200. So 8 plus 25 gives us 33 over 200. So that there is your final answer. So we had to take these, change them to fractions first, and then take the fractions, common denominator, you're just adding them.